Well, hi and welcome to what is round 9 pre-show here, all thanks to JINX Shifters on the AOSC 10. Big shout out to all of our sponsors, of course, AJ Insurance Services, simrigs.com, Sydney Computers, Bowler Media and Sideways Photography, Race Art Australia, and of course, Track Cams for Gourmets. But it is a review of what happened last week in round number 8, which was Watkins Glen, the big one, 650 Ks, and then we'll get into what is going to be round 9 at Sebring coming up this Friday night. Joining us this week, though, in the show, we thought we'd bring in a man which has a bit of talent out there and doing pretty good in the championship at the moment, Mr. Adam Briggs from the DPRsimrigs.com team. Welcome tonight, Adam.
Thank you very much. Thanks for the invite. It's good to be here.
And, of course, joining us back here in the box, and you're sitting there with stunned mullet faces on, Daniel Leat and Matty Norris.
G'day.
How are we?
Good to see that you pulled up all right, Norry. I thought you might have you took a couple of big hits last week.
I'm a bit broken. I'm not gonna lie.
Oh, we're going to get into that plenty later. All right, so let's have a look at round number 8, which was Watkins Glen. It was 650 Ks, 119 laps, big night. We were almost 4 hours in the race, and it was a big one to start things off. Let's run through the top 5, though, the teams. And, of course, James Scott ended up winning there with Jordan Caruso finishing across the line. He was in the car at the time in the Logitech G Autos Esports group. In second was the SSR boys, the Synergy Sim Racing of Tom Freer and Wayne Burke. Fantastic drive from those two. Then it was Adam Briggs and Andrew Dyson in the simrigs.com DPR team in third. Another one of the Synergy teams, Brenton Hobson and Michael Schreier in fourth. And fifth was Corey Shepherd and Brian Borg coming up in the Premier Racing team 017. There's your top 5, Dan, as we ran through, and plenty of other teams too in the mix. It was a big race and lots of things happened.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we saw racing from the start all the way through to the very end. It didn't disappoint at all. Throw in a couple of safety cars, a few blow-on motors, which we're going to have a good discussion on that a little bit later on. But it was fantastic to see the racing all the way up through the field, not just at the front of the pack. And we had some big drives come through the way. You know, the guy likes Adam and Andrew Dyson stayed right around inside the top 5 pretty well all night. The big one, Corey Shepherd and Brian Borg, who went front to back and back towards the front again. And then a few of the guys that did get involved in some of those or resulted in some of those safety cars actually working their way back up through the field with the wave arounds and cycling back up and down through the field as well.
Yeah, Norrie, that was you were one of those, and we can touch with Briggsy here on this one. Blown motors, we had 3 of them throughout the race. We had one on lap 17, which is you, Norrie, but that was a big incident you had. You might have damaged that one. Lap 56 around there, McKnight blew a motor, and on lap 84 we saw Kyle Stokes blow a motor.
Yeah, it was a case of blown motors and bent fences and everything in that one. But to get your lap back and work your way back into the race really does make the whole event seem worth it. One of the ones I was going to point out was Burke and Freer. They made us wait right until the end until we saw that strategy play out. So it was awesome to see from those guys.
Yeah, that was interesting that Burke actually stayed out, and we noticed in the background we were questioning whether he would go in and follow. Like Jordan Caruso and James Scott went in and changed drivers, and for Burke to stay out there when he did, it was a bit of a risk, but unfortunately didn't pay off for him in the end. But Briggsy, let's talk about the blown motors. I mean, your team, unfortunately, last round 7 it was, well, you had some issues with that as well.
Yeah, so at Sonoma we had I had a blown motor where downshifting into the hairpin last turn at Sonoma, and it was really out of the ordinary. It was well under rev limit. Grabbed a gear and she just went pop. And it seems like probably that's actually now more likely in the way the new car builds come about. So yeah, we're sort of exploring theories as to why that might be, and some of the community has been expressing that maybe there's more rolling resistance in the tires, so therefore compression locks actually put more energy through the drivetrain, the engine, that sort of thing as well.
Yeah, interesting. And you touched on that. We had the new build this week as well. How did you cope with that? Is there some major differences?
Yeah, it's a lot different. The way the car feels, it's a lot more understeery. The way it conveys the understeer to the driver is a lot different too. So it's just getting reacquainted with the car. It's really no different to a rule reset in other categories around the world. So we just got to find a way to optimize the setup, essentially.
Well, a couple of people struggle with it. One of them, when you talk about James Scott, he got super airborne, and that was sort of in the first stint as well. He come through the bus stop there and just launched the car.
That was a really big moment, that one, because we watched the replay of that as it unfolded, and he'd kind of gone a little defensive on the run down through the back straight, brought it back across the line, and don't know whether he just pinched a rear brake and it sent the car off, but was fortunate not to find a fence. Only a little bit of time penalty as a result, but the airborne shot that we've seen from Bowler Media was absolutely fantastic. They picked the absolute essence of it out there. But, I mean, once he got back in, settled it down, got back on the back of the train, and we saw them obviously do a driver swap early on, and then he was able to compose himself and came back the same old James Scott we've seen so far this season.
Yeah, I think the rejoin was super important. He only lost 2 positions, got right back in, held on to that 3rd position, like you say, a bit of an undercut there. And that's what we saw a lot with Tom Freer too in the pit stop strategies, was his pit stops were very, very short. So they managed to take a bit less fuel maybe, and always managed to jump 2 or 3 positions on the, coming out of the pits.
Yeah, they played that strategy absolutely fantastically. It's sort of impressed us a little bit that they were able to save as much fuel, and using the draft obviously definitely paid dividends for them.
Yeah, Briggsy, you were out there and you would have, gone over your pit stop strategy and all your data from last weekend. Where was there any time saving in the pit stops? Was there any at all, or do you think those guys just had it right on the money?
I think they had fuel saved throughout a stint, and then I think they also sort of accounted for what fuel they may save in the next stint. So when you do those sorts of calculations, you can come up with a massive yield in the pits. We didn't quite know how the pit stops were going to roll out, so we couldn't guarantee that we were always going to be in a draft. So there's a risk there, and the guys rolled the dice, and obviously it paid off for them. They had mega pit stops all night.
Yeah, well, they started out of 5th position, so it did pay off. They got up into 2nd, got on the podium, so big congratulations to those guys. But Norry, we can't let you go, mate. We touched on it, the ping pong effort you had. How did that play out for you in the car, mate?
It was a case of first lap coming with the idea of having a bang, and it was the wrong bang. And basically, you told me to hit it at an apex all weekend, and I had to. And as you're coming out the first lap, the car a little bit cold, a little bit loose, and it just hit the curb, bounced, and smack. And the minute I did it, I knew you guys would be ragging on me.
Well, we don't think you're eligible for the safety car prize money because we all bet on a safety car last week, and you caused the first one.
I called that I would, though.
Yeah,
so
you did. You did say you would probably cause it. It was a probably, but you did cause it.
And so that should mean I win entirely.
Yeah. Oh, mate, it was fun to see you bounce the car around, and we had a great time in the commentary box, having a bit of fun with you. Obviously, you couldn't hear us. Anyway, we will move on to our endurance standings, and this is where it is. We've had 3 endurance rounds. Obviously, we had the solo 1 and 2 team endurances, and no surprise, James Scott leading that one out there with 910 points. Andrew Dyson in the number 2 position. They're not his traditional 3rd place, so it's good to see the boys up there. Tom Freer now in 3rd position. Corey Shepherd and Brian Borg in that 4th and 5th, though, the PRT boys. And it's only that solo endurance that's really split those two. Michael Taliancic in 6th, Wayne Burke in 7th. He's had a couple of runs there with Tom Freer. Adam Briggs, you're down in 8th. Jamie Stovall in 9, and Brendan Hobson rounds out our top 10.
And the top 5 now really sort of solidified their positions here. I mean, there's a fairly big gap between Borg and Taliancic, and Scott and Dyson are really setting themselves up for a good run to take out this title.
Yeah, I'm just looking at some of the, the names there and the teams there. So obviously you've got Pursuit. You've got the Synergy Sim Racing guys. They've got a couple of guys in there. Pursuit Sim Racing got a couple. there's sort of a couple. It's dominated obviously by James Scott, but I mean, he's had some amazing co-drivers with him as well.
Oh, absolutely. They've put a really strong campaign together so far, and as we saw last week with him and Caruso, they didn't really, well, other than James' little excursion off track, they didn't put a foot wrong.
No, and he had quite a few laps to do at the end. I think it was like 16 laps where he was under quite a bit of pressure from Burke as well. So he managed to put the elbows out there and just hold on to that till the tyres went off. And Briggsy, we were talking to you actually after the race about tyre degradation on these cars with the new setup. How are you finding that?
Yeah, it's tough. In the second to last stint in the end of the race, I put two wheels in the grass coming into the last turn, slid the car up the track, four-wheel drift, and the tires were overheated. They were gone. I had nothing to fight with until the next stop. So they're actually really temperature sensitive now compared to what they were. It's still the case that you drive out of the pits and the very first lap you drive is the fastest, but it's just really easy to take them over a thermal cliff now, unfortunately. So
I did also like that we're getting plenty of feedback from Tom Freer because we thought maybe he was going to look at the championship and maybe let Burke just stay in that second position. But he was messaging, I think it was you, Norry, he was messaging you saying, no, we're going for it. I'm telling him to make the move. But, with the tyres, wearing and all that, Caruso did an amazing job just to put the elbows out, be a little bit defensive and just hold out that charge that came from Burke in the final few laps of the race.
Yeah, I mean, I'll echo Briggs' statement that the tyres, they were wearing towards the end of the stint. You could really burn the things out if you tried hard enough. But Caruso really defended well from Briggs to stay there. And like you say, Tom was on the messenger. I couldn't stop him. And he was saying, I want that win. Because he reckons that was a good shot for a win for them. And I reckon if there was some light traffic that wasn't in their way, they would have got it done.
Yeah, it was going to be interesting. And, well, it changed things up a little bit in the championship as well, which we'll have a look at now. Let's have a look at where our points now stand after 8 rounds of racing. Of course, James Scott leading us out. Corey Shepherd still in that second position, just holding on. Andrew Dyson, though, has closed the gap there in third place. He's only, I'm looking at about 300 points behind. Tom Freer back in fourth position. Briggsy, you're in your traditional 5, so 3 and 5 for the DPR boys. Brian Borg now in 6th. Jordan Ross in 7th, which we'll talk about in a second. Kyle Stokes in 8th. Damien Johnson in 9 and Jamie Stovall is in 10th position. Yeah, so after reviewing that top 10 there, a couple of the names there I want to point out really is Jordan Ross and Kyle Stokes. Now, they had that engine blow up, which was on about lap 84 of the last round in the Enduro. So they've missed out on a swag of points there, but they're so bunched up really, aren't they, between 6 to 10. I mean, we look at positions 8, 9 and 10, and they're all on 1,340 to 1,280 points. So really bunched up there in the top 10, especially the back half of that. Dan, it's going to be interesting because we are halfway through the series now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's hard to imagine that we've already gone through 8 events so far, and we're about to kick off the back end of the season now. But yeah, as you thoroughly put, the top 10 very compressed at the moment. Synergy are lining up. They've got 4 cars in the top 10 at the moment, so they're really coming on strong as the championships progress. But the guys that are in there at the moment are all still trying to get on top and get past James Scott, who realistically at this point of the season has a couple of rounds that he can afford to maybe not have the best run in and still keep himself up towards the pointy end.
Well, Briggs, is there a bit of a focus on the team at this point? Obviously, with Andrew Dyson there in third, he's just over 200 points behind Corey Shepherd. Do you start to push him and maybe get him up in the qualifying? We can draft him on a couple of these rounds.
It depends on the track. Sebring's probably not really a track you can do a whole lot of drafting, except maybe the back straight. But look, we'll try and keep alleyways, avenues clear for Dyson. Make sure he's in the best position he can be in all the practice sessions and qualifying sessions. And in the race, obviously, we're not going to be fighting each other. So, definitely a case of trying to push DPR forward. But there's also drop rounds to be counted into that at some point in the latter half of the season as well as we progress through. So that'll be good to see how that plays out.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Norry, any standouts there for you?
Really, the surge from Synergy, they're coming. They're coming. It's there, and they need to take that step. Have they fallen foul of the mid-season update? we're yet to see. But yeah, I reckon they're coming.
Oh, I think they're going to put lots of hours in after last week. I think, especially Jordan Ross, we had him on the show last week. I think he'll put quite a few hours in. They were looking for that setup change. It didn't quite pay off for them, I don't think, at our last round, Watkins Glen. But once they find that sweet spot, they're definitely going to be at boiling point, I think, to start coming over. But we got some great images, and of course we did change over, and we got some new media support on board from Bowler Media and Sideways Photography. And these are just some of the shots that came out from the weekend we saw up on social media. A great shot of our AMG safety car, of course, the JINX shifters car in there as well. But I really love the James Scott one there, which is him airborne coming out of the bus stop. That really captured that moment, didn't it, Dan?
Yeah, it's a fantastic shot. All four wheels up off the deck. He's really trying to send it to the moon there. And obviously we saw the recovery he was able to do, but fantastic photography to be able to get that one dialed in nicely.
I like the shot too where he's in a bit of competition there with Corey Shepherd. I reckon that was during the race. And we could not go putting all the photos up after I went through them that they shared with us without putting you up there, Norry. And that's the moment of impact.
Yeah, that one hurt.
What was the feedback like on your steering wheel? How high have you got it set?
Not too high, because that's not uncommon for me. But yeah, that was at that point there. You can see my heart break as my official return to racing just finished there.
Yeah.
And then
So we'll get you in the commentary box for the next 8 rounds is what you're telling us.
pretty much here to stay.
Oh, there goes your endurance career. Oh, it's going to be that's pretty funny, actually. We had a good time. All right. Well, let's have a look at Sebring, of course, in Florida, USA. Round number 9 coming your way back to the sprint configuration, 150 kilometres. It's going to be fast. We go back to a mere 25 laps this week, which is nothing compared to what we've been doing lately. But big track, long distance, and there's plenty of things to throw at this one. Dan, run us through it.
Well, yeah, you're absolutely right. So we're looking at 5.9 kilometres or 3.7 miles for the guys abroad. 17 turns. It is a very bumpy, technical, fast-flowing circuit built on a former US Air Force base. It still holds the concrete pads that they ran on those runways down both the front straight and the back straight. So a lot of work for the cars and suspension and for the setup engineers to dial those in to get them right. The big one's going to be down into turn 1 off the start. It's a very wide, fast sweeping turn, but you've got to be cautious because you want to kiss that wall on entry. Look out for the dirt on the exit. Very easy to make a meal of that one. And we have seen in some past events, some guys just run a little wide and upset the car as a result of that. The big ones to keep an eye on, the run down through to turn 4 down into the hairpin. There is plenty of opportunity to get a pass completed, but you've got to be cautious. There's a big bump on the traditional racing line, so we might see the cars just a little bit off before they tip in and work their way through. Following that, the next big chance for a pass that we're going to potentially see these guys into will be the run through 10, 11, 12, and 13. If you can manage to get the car alongside, you can slot one down the inside, get a good run, and set yourself up for the long run down the back straight, heading towards turn 17, the famous sunset bend. It's super tricky. There's about 4 or 5 lines that you can actually take to get yourself through there. Plenty of passing opportunity, but the bumps on the inside are key, and getting the car to ride and settle over that is going to be really, really tricky to do. But if you can get it there, you can look to get a move done. Following that, keep an eye out. Pit entry, very tricky. You've got to keep the car right over to the right-hand side through the mid-corner of 17, pull it across to the lane. And if you're side-by-side with someone and you get pushed, you expect to be doing one more lap to get through.
Well, Briggsy, you had a look at this already. I know you've done a couple of laps there. What are going to be some of the challenges you're going to face as a driver out there?
Yeah, keeping off the curbs through the turns 2, 3, 4 sort of complex, and big braking zones, big passing zones. The hairpin into off the turn 5 complex. There's also then turn 7 as well, which is a big braking zone as well. And the last corner is massive overtaking area as well. So yeah, it's probably going to be a fair share of sends and a fair share of defense. So it's going to be an exciting race in 25 laps, I'm sure.
Well, we spoke a bit earlier about the tyres, and the impact that's changed with the new build, do you think that's going to have a bit of an effect on this race as well?
Yeah, Sebring's got an odd surface. It's mainly concrete. So it's always a bit odd for setup. And I'm sure this will be no different.
I'm sure you're not giving away any team secrets, but yeah, the new build, hopefully you can get your head around this one and get a few laps in and maybe, get us up past that 3 and 5 we've seen you previously. But, if we want to have a look at the track, the best time to do it's now, of course, all thanks to Pure Driving School. We get out there and we get a lap done by Mr. Norry over here. And this week, mate, did someone actually want to lend you the keys or did you struggle to find a car this week?
It was slim pickings down this garage at Sebring. There was no garage door that was open or welcoming to me. They all told me to get lost. So I begged and begged and begged, and Dan Leat actually threw me the keys to one of the Coda cars. So here's that lap. G'day everyone and welcome this week to Norry's Navigation. We're here at Sebring for the AOSC and I've borrowed one of the Coda Sim sports cars and it's a massive stitch up thanks to Daniel Leat on one of the old VFs. So let's have a bit of a spin around Sebring. Diving it down into turn 1, you want to be hard on the brakes and try and get as close to that wall as you can on the inside. Don't hit it though, because you want to use all that exit coming out of the road on the right. Diving down deep into turn 3 and around on the curb, left, right and left again. Bit of slide on exit as you want to get all maximum throttle down to make the nice long run down to turn 7. It's a tight hairpin that's coming up, so you really got to watch your entry and exit speed. All the way down to first gear, turn it in and short to second to try and minimize wheel spin on your way out. Hold it flat through 8, 9 and 10. We work our way around to 11, back again, down to second and get the car tipped in. A little bit of curb on the right, try and use something on the left as well as we go around the sweeping corner here, and then we dart back down to another right-hander, back to second, a little bit of curb on the left, a little bit of curb on the right and on the left as well on the exit. Now you want to build up the speed, run our final part of the run here, moving towards the back end of the circuit, back down to second gear as we tip into this penultimate corner as we turn right and find ourselves back on the massively long straight here at Sebring, using all the gears, all the speed, all the revs as we're making our way to the actual penultimate corner. This is the last one. It's a long sweeping hairpin and it takes some talent to get this one right. You got to dart it in, turning and braking at the same time. These supercars don't like that, but you make it around there in one piece, build up the revs and cross the line. You should be a fairly decent 2:06 lap time after that one. And Dan, because of the stitch up, I might keep the car.
Norry, I'm impressed. I don't know how many laps you had to do so you could get that good one in, but I noticed that doesn't look like Dan's current car.
No, I was completely stitched up. I thought I was getting a current gen car, and he throws me in something they've had since probably 2003.
Dan, there was one reason you lent it to him, though, wasn't it? You weren't going to give him the latest and greatest.
Well, yeah, look, for sure. I mean, we've seen what he's capable of doing last time out at Watkins. He's a magnet for the wall, and we didn't really want to damage the car before we went into race weekend. But it's good to get the old girl out. We did give her a bit of a tune-up before you got into it, so thanks for dusting the cobwebs out.
All right, Briggsy, we've gone around there now. You had a bit of a look. There's going to be a couple of really key overtaking areas on this one, and turn number 7 is going to be one of those. Take us through that. What are your concerns there?
Yeah, so it's deep under brakes. It's easily too wide. There's a bump on the apex, and the exit is straight into another corner. So if you get down the inside there, you've got to get the move done and done early. Otherwise, the person you're passing can hold you too wide for the next set of turns and just drag out the passing action right through to turn 10, essentially. So, you've got to get in there. You've got to be decisive. You've got to get it done. and watch that bump on the inside.
Well, yeah, it is another little area. It's probably going to be very interesting to see if that will cause a few issues for some of the drivers there, especially in the opening lap. That's normally where we see most of the carnage happen. All right, Norry, though, what is the pit stop strategy? Where are we going this week? What are we doing? How's it all going to unfold?
Well, take your enduro driver and throw them out because you're not going to need that strategy anymore. I don't want any jokes about my driving. It's about 17 laps per tank, and it's only a 25-lap race, so there's not too much distance in it. One pit stop, fuel tires, and send it. You might want to do it early though, because having a late pit stop, it might be a reason to have drama. So get it out of the way early and get it done.
All right, there you go. And some of the questions we do have to ask. Safety car, bets on it. Dan, what is the bet this week?
Absolutely.
Norry?
I'm not driving, so it might not happen.
Briggsy, what do you reckon? Safety car?
2.
2. You got 2. Yes. All right. Safety car is we're all going to say we're going to get one. It's going to be an interesting track. I think turn number 7 is probably where it is probably going to happen in the first couple of laps. That's my prediction. First 5 laps, we're going to see one, and it's going to be an instant. Either, I reckon, maybe 3, 4, 5 or turn 7 might be the other one. Interestingly enough, we did see Cooper Webster and James Scott come together earlier in the season on that final lap, and we've got a nice long right-hander there in turn number 17 before we head back onto the main straight. So that's going to be another interesting one if someone wants to take a big dive down that back straight. Can't wait to see what's going to happen at Sebring. Briggsy, mate, thanks for joining us on the panel here this week. It's been fantastic having you.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you for the invite.
Dan, Norry, have we got anything else left to say about Sebring?
No, I'm looking forward to it, mate. Cannot wait to see how the guys work their way around.
It'd be interesting to be back on this side of the camera, but let's hope there's a good round coming forward and get out of Sebring as soon as possible.
Well, all 3 of us back in the commentary booth this week. It's going to be a big one. Don't forget, if you haven't already, make sure you like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, AOSC TV, of course, live and free. Coming your way Friday night. It'll kick off our broadcast at about 9:40 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time for the qualifying. And, of course, the main race will start 10 p.m. So 10 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, YouTube, AOSC TV. It's all happening Friday the 26th of March. Race 184 is coming to you this week from Sebring. It's round number 9. We had just ticked over past the halfway point of Season 10 of the AOSC. We can't wait to see you there. See you soon.